Welcome to the Children's Book Author Podcast. I'm your host, Eleanor Page. If you write for children, or it's always been your dream to, you're in the right place. As the children's book author, I'm on a quest to discover everything there is about writing, publishing, and marketing children's books, as well as how to supercharge my creativity, skyrocket my productivity, and absolutely everything else there is to know about how to be the best, so you can be too. Join me as I interview fabulous guests and become the children's book author. Welcome back to the Children's Book Author Podcast with me, your host, Eleanor Page. And today I have an amazing interview with a middle grade author, Brett Perkins, who is also a primary school teacher from the central coast of New South Wales, Australia. So Brett's been encouraging his students to embrace their imaginations and create their own incredible stories, all while doing it himself and writing behind the scenes secretly. That sounds so much more dramatic than it really is, which I love. And he released his first middle grade book, The Prison for the Magically Cursed, in 2022, early on that year, if I remember correctly. And on the 9th of June 2023, book 2 is coming out, which is The Battleground for the Magically Cursed. So go and pre-order it or buy it if it's already out by the time you hear this. Either way, fantastic books. You're going to learn so much from listening to Brett. I am on the ball this week, so it has not been weeks and weeks since my last podcast. It's only been about a week. Oh gosh, what do I need to do to keep this speed up? And so I don't have too many ponderings behind the scenes. For those of you that hate my intros, I know who you are. No, I'm only kidding. I don't know who you are. Though some people have left comments saying, stop making an intro. And other people have said to me, love your intro. So I just go with the flow of wherever I am at week to week. And this week, not too much has been happening other than I am still on my quest to clean up my writer's act. And so the week before, I had a 10,000 word day. This week, I've been devouring my way through the book by Julia Cameron, Write for Life. And she says in that book that you need to pace yourself and be consistent. So I still think I'm going to aim for big word days here and there because I love the latest flow science, which shows that you can set yourself up to do amazing word days and be okay. At the same time, I love Julia Cameron and her advice about not draining your creative well. So it's kind of a balance, right? And it's such a good book. I cannot recommend. I think every writer must read it. It is required reading, Write for Life by Julia Cameron, and really all creatives, but especially writers. Such a good book. And other than that, I've just been writing, working on the Magician's Academy. And I've also gone back and I'm really kind of checking plot and that I'm sticking sort of to roughly kind of the plot. And you will find out even more about that as you listen to Brett, because we talk all about plotting and writing middle grade novels, as well as the title of his podcast in the end ended up being Launch Your Book into a Bestseller, which is what Brett did. So I'm going to get out of the way early this week, let you jump in on today's interview. I hope you absolutely love it and are so inspired. I just had the best time talking with Brett. We're always learning from each other. And one of the things I love that he says in this interview is not to be frightened to ask other authors for help. I love this. Listen, have fun, learn, grow, become the best author you can. Welcome back to the Children's Book Author Podcast for children's book authors. Wow, I really picked that title well. Welcome back. Today I have another children's book author, and it is a middle grade author, Brett Perkins, based in Australia again. He is a primary school teacher, which for you Americans means elementary school, I think. I'm pretty sure that's right. And he has written 2 amazing middle grade novels. I'm sure the 3rd in the series is on its way. Welcome to the show, Brett.
Thank you. It's wonderful to talk to you again. It feels just like coming back home. we have good chats. It's relaxed. It's calm. It's easy.
Yeah, and I always, learn so much from you. And one of the things, being a martial artist myself, and why did I say that? It just popped in my mouth. But being a martial artist, when you get to black belt, you think you're like the top. And then you start a new martial arts and you're back in white belt. And the first time that happens, you think, no, I'm a black belt. But you recognize that you've got to keep going back to white. And that's what publishing feels like to me, which is why I said all that. And, even though you're quite a beginner, you're not. You are so not a beginner. You teach me so many things. So, tell me a little bit about what that journey's been like to get to your black belt.
Oh, it has been a journey that's been very up and down. I remember hating reading and hating writing when I was growing up, but I was always a storyteller. My toys would have the most epic battles in my bedroom, and I would just have these imaginative stories in my head that just would play out for hours. And it really wasn't until year 9 when I had that one teacher. And it's not like she did anything miraculous. She didn't say anything that was life-changing, but she just gave me the opportunity to be creative. And I think that was that seed that she planted that really was a springboard to so much of what I've done now. And even going into teaching, I mean, I see that seed that she gave me, and I am excited because each time I get my new class, I try and plant those seeds as well. And I just think how inspirational she was, and hopefully that those seeds land within the students that I teach. But really, she was the start of my writing journey. And I started writing with her, and I would write heaps. I don't know what it was. She just turned me around. I would create these epic characters and fantasy worlds, and I don't know, it was a real escape. And all of those books that I have are still on my shelf. I would sit and type them and print them out. And I just found a love of literature. And so becoming a primary school teacher, that love of literature is something that I engage with every single day. I feel like I'm teaching the students to write while teaching myself to write at the same time. We'll get a fantastic piece of literature, break it down, look at sentence structure, look at vocab. And at the same time as they're learning, I'm learning as well. And I found my writing journey just continued to develop through that investigation of good literature. And I guess in 2017, I thought, I've got a story that I want to tell. I remember it was just this vivid dream that came to me, and it was honestly the first book in its entirety, every character. And what was interesting was one of the characters I created in year 9 with that teacher that planted the seed is one of the characters in this current book. Transformed, different name, still has the same magical ability, but is in this book. And so I look back at those seeds that were planted when I was in high school, and that is really the springboard to where my book has landed me now. And, now going into the second book, I do feel like, I'm back to being a learner of martial arts, because you do one book and you enjoy that process. And it took me 5 years to write the first book. And then once that one's released, you think, oh, to keep my readership, I need to start making sure that that second book is going. I thankfully had written the first and second draft of book 2 before book 1 was released. So I already had it well and truly in the works. I just wanted to wait and see how book 1 was going to be received. And then when it was received so well, book 2 just came into being. And so, yeah, a year later, after writing book 1 book 2 is about to come out, and now I'm drafting book 3. So it has been a whirlwind of a journey, but if that seed wasn't planted so early in my life, I would never have gotten this far with writing.
It's amazing that that teacher planted that seed in you at that age, and then almost like you've gone back and to honor yourself at that age where you really found your creativity. You've brought, kid Brett's characters into adult Brett's book, and they're actually brilliant, right? So, and you probably see that same thing in your students, that they're brilliant. Their characters and the things they come up with are amazing. They just need to be put into like a structure of writing a book. It's a real, almost like you're honoring yourself, which I just think is beautiful.
Absolutely. I see I see what the students write in my class, and I always encourage them to just have that little notebook there and to keep their ideas, because right now the ideas you may not be ready for the ideas may not be ready for you, but at some stage down the track, there might be just one idea that stays with you, and then it's the right time to use it. And so, I often will have a notebook, or I'll be on my phone and writing notes, because I just think, okay, it's not right for that idea now, but geez, that's a good idea. Sometime, one day, that idea is going to be right for me, and I'll run with it. And yeah, so that's Lev is the character in my book, and he was the one that I created in Year 9, and I'm so grateful, because I feel like I actually had decades with Lev, getting to know him, and so his character comes through in the book, and and it's he's just such an integral character in the book that it's a long history.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, that is look, I have a saying that if you're a teacher, you're cheating. And it's because I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Like that's why I say it. It's my envy. And, one of my book characters turns green with envy. And I always imagine I'm turning green with envy because, you're a teacher. So you have access to students. You can ask them what they think. You can, as you say, because you're teaching how to write, you're learning how to write even better than an author who has to write 15 books to learn how to write. You're doing it that way. Yep. But that's amazing. So do you actually, when you look at themes, does it help you come up with your themes?
Absolutely. I take so many ideas back to my students. In fact, when I was ready to start publishing The Prison for the Magically Cursed, I sent it to a few beta readers, and a couple of them said, the title just doesn't seem right. Get rid of the word magically and call it The Prison for the Cursed. Well, I ended up taking it to my class and showing them the title, and it was amazing. The boys connected with the word prison and the girls connected with the word magically. And I thought, you know what? They've just told me right now that the book title they want is this. I'm going to stick with it. I cannot tell you how many times I go into class and say, I've got this idea. What do you think? And they'll say, good, but what about this? And I'll go, better. Got it? So I just had a sit down chat with my Year 6 students a couple of weeks back, and they, like most of them, had read the first book, ready for the second book. And I said to them, what do you want to see in the series? And I tell you what, I was writing everything. Oh, that's great. Oh, yes, that's great. A lot of things, it was like, tick, 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 that's coming, yes. But they were like, it's cheating. It is cheating.
It's good cheating, though. It's such good cheating. Like, it's not cheating at all. That's the wrong word. Yeah, it's actually like, writing for your audience.
Yes.
And, you've got an audience there, almost like a beta team.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, even the blurb for book 2, I ended up getting a writing group together at lunchtimes, and we sat down and analysed the blurb, and, they had to highlight the words that they connected with. They highlighted the sentence that was the least impactful, and I used all of their notes to construct this blurb, and it's cheating. It's gold, but it's cheating.
Oh no, it's fabulous. It's I'm really glad I asked you, because you're like, out of everybody I've asked, it's cheating to be a teacher. You've made me go, that's not cheating. That's just like so good. It's just, I call it cheating because I want a team like that too. Do you think I should go back and become a teacher just so I can have a...
Absolutely. Target audience sitting in front of you every day, that's gold.
But, it's smart. It's actually smart. Like because I'm always thinking of the people listening to the podcast. It's, use what you have. So, if you are a teacher, 100%, you've got kids right there, like utilize them. And I mean, it must be so rich for them to be involved and then to see that book come out, which they played a little part in.
Absolutely. Well, in fact, the dedication for book 2 is for the students, because I always say their magic is really unique, and they do feel like they've got a place in this book. They feel invested in it because they might have given me a seed of an idea, or, I don't like this, I prefer this. And absolutely, I give credit to them. They're very quick at telling me what they love and what they don't love. And even when I bring good literature to the students and read the book to them, the conversations that we have during that reading is so, because they drop nuggets the whole time, and you're just thinking, okay, so you enjoyed that part of it. That's surprising. Okay, tell me why you didn't enjoy it. And they love talking about their thoughts and feelings on books and literature. And you just have to listen. You just have to be there to listen.
So how does your discerning author brain know the difference between when you go, yeah, I like that, but I'm not going to change it, or you're right, actually, that would make it better? Like, how do you tell?
I think when I started writing the first book, I had a vision of where the arc was going to go. I knew where the characters started, and I really have a strong idea of where I want them to go. And I'm very open to lots of different ideas as to what my target audience want to see in my work. As long as it gets me to point Z at the end, I'm happy to throw in these little things that they are looking for, because at the end of the day, I am writing the story for myself. But what a reward to know that the students are enjoying the story as much as I am. And I mean, that might just be adding a little idea, or, having a character involved in a scene more. So yeah, as long as it goes from A to Z, which has always been my game plan, I'm very open to different ideas, because I too am a learner. I always say to my students, I am a learner, and this book, I'm growing with it, I'm learning with it, I'm developing it, and that's why I'm so connected to the story. And I think why my passion comes across in the words and the characters and the themes of the book.
And I love that this is actually key. Now, people, I say this is key because I am the author that wrote the first book, threw it out in the world and went, ta-da! And then everyone started, sending reviews, and I went, I shall never write the second book. Never. And three, the 4. Gosh, I have people write to me every day. Where the F is the They don't do that because they're children, but they want to. I can tell. If they were allowed, they would put a swear word in there. Where is the next book? Where's the next book? And, like, I'm learning as I'm going, but that was a big error, right? But so it's actually, I want you to learn from Brett, because he's smart. He knows what he's doing. You wrote the second book before you released that's genius, Brett.
I was so nervous to release the first book. I mean, it was really ready after about 3 years, but it was just one of those things. I keep when I do my author talks, I keep saying to the students, there were 17 drafts of book 1. Now, was every draft really necessary? Probably not. Does every reader care that I use sprint instead of raced? Probably not. But I was working through that book and literally, pulling apart every single word. And it got to the point where I just thought, I just need to put it away for a bit. I really love it. I've got to stop touching it because it's just starting to poke holes in it now. So I need to know when to stop. Let me write the second book and let's just get that creative juices, because I was still feeling creative. The other reason, and I'm so glad I did it, was because of a term that was very new to me when I was writing book 1, imposter syndrome. I keep hearing authors who say, the first book was such a success, how am I going to live up to that success in my second book? And, I remember thinking, well, I'm in the flow now. If I write my second book now, before the first book is released, well, if the first book is good, the second one's going to be okay too. And so I did. I ended up getting it out, and I found the flow of my characters, the flow of my story. I feel confident that book 2 is going to be received well. It's definitely a very different book. But the imposter syndrome isn't there, because really the person who wrote that first book is the person who wrote the second book. And I was in such a world of the way to write and, the techniques I was employing. So kind of just having them both done. Writing the second book gave me confidence in the first. Writing them together gave me confidence in both.
Oh, there was a quote. That's one that's got to go on the sticky note. And that is a big lesson. So, and sometimes it's not really talked about. And I think it's just really important, because I might not have fallen down that pothole if you had written them back then. Brad should have done it earlier and taught me that, right? So, and it is a big pothole because, I've started author mentoring, and you will not believe the amount of people that I mentor who go like, I wrote the first book 4 years ago, and I'm like, I know why you chose me to mentor you, and it is to slap you and to tell you. So do I sound like Gandalf now? Someone, don't ever let that happen again. Get that flow. And I love that you said that you that wrote the first one was creative and smart enough to pull off that second one, and you have. It was coming out in May, everybody. So let's talk a little bit about the launches and what's involved in launching a book. How does Brett do it? Now, I'm sure you're going to give me so many notes. I'm going to have to. Oh my God, it's amazing. Teach me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And this, I think I watched one of your podcasts a few days ago, and you talked about you using the word maybe. Maybe that'll work for me. Maybe that'll be good for me. And the same, everything I say here is going to be a maybe, whether it suits your book or not. But I think the one thing every author needs to remember when they're about to launch a book is be prepared well in advance. Make sure that if you're using social media platforms, make sure that you have an established following. Build that, and you build that by posting, things about yourself, about your work, about your reading choices, about your life, and connecting with the people who comment. Don't be afraid to be out there and asking other people who are moving in the right direction, how are you doing that? I cannot tell you how many times I've reached out to different authors and asked questions. I've reached out to you and asked questions, and, everyone is so helpful that they're there for you. So be prepared and be organized, and start building up your social media platforms as quickly as you can. I wish I had a newsletter. I did not go down that path because I just couldn't find the time. But that would be another thing that I think is a really great opportunity. Get those email addresses and start sending out little blogs, and, not being a pain. Once a month, people are happy to read something, but it just continues to promote your work, promote your life, promote your philosophy, promote your teachings. And again, people start connecting with you, and people start connecting with your books. I think you also have to look at your book and think about what it is your book brings to the world, and what is the benefit of your book to your target audience. How is it different to what else is put out there? I always think theme, characters, and plot are the key aspects to launching your book. People want to know that there's going to be relatable, flawed, goal-driven characters who are ready to grow. People want to know that the plot is going to be integral to the growth of those characters, and they want to know the nuances of the plot that are really different and super enticing to read. And I think when it comes to middle grade, I know myself as a teacher, theme is key, because when I sit down with any piece of literature, I not only want to look at the theme and think, how is this going to help promote reading and literature for my students, but how is it going to help my students to grow as people? And I think for a middle grade audience, when you're writing children's books, your platform is filled with parents, librarians, and teachers, and they need to know those nuances, because middle grade children aren't on those platforms buying your book. They need a credit card, they need a parent, they need someone. So you need to be targeting parents, teachers, librarians, all of those sort of bookstagrammers, as to why your book is appropriate for their child or their classroom or their library. So it is about trying to get the mindset of, how am I best going to promote my book? I also think one of the biggest strategies for me was the week before the launch. And it will be the same for me this time. I ended up doing a what did I call it? Like a mega pre-order boost. And I pumped it that a week before the book was out, I pumped everyone to pre-order. I had advertisements I put out in the local community, and I said, everyone, let's order on the 21st of April. I had 428 pre-orders on that day. I was the third book in Australia behind Colleen Hoover and Atomic Habits. I was the best in children's books and libraries. I was number 2 in fantasy behind Harry Potter's free audiobook. Everyone just chose that day to pre-order. And I cannot tell you, having that bestseller label on a comparable I think it's really important. It's got to be a comparable topic. Some people have, the best book about squirrels. They're bestsellers in squirrel books. Well, that's great. That is great. Congratulations. That is a huge achievement. But I always aim high. I've never, ever shot low with this book because I know it's going to be big. I know it's going to be huge. I know it's going to be on a small screen or a big screen one day. I've always thought that. Everyone kept telling me it's a bestseller. I kept thinking it was, and it was. I knew it was going to win awards, and it did. You've got to keep this mindset, and you've got to be confident in your product. Not arrogant. I'd never want to come across as that, but you have to have this personal belief that it's going to be right. So on that 21st of April, everyone, I think it was 424 or 428 orders went through, and I cannot tell you how it blasted the internet. Sales just skyrocketed. On the 29th of April when it came out, there were hundreds selling every day. It was just phenomenal. So it is about preparation and planning. It's knowing your product, selling what it is about your book to the right people on your social media, and having a game plan for that week prior so that it gets the springboard it deserves.
Oh, I need to take a Valium now, Brett. I don't even know what Valium is, but in a good way. I mean, I need to take a class from you. No, I'm only kidding. That's brilliant. So many good things in there that I want to unpack. So the first thing, I'm going to go backwards, is, you blew me away with your level of self-belief and belief in your product. And, what I heard in there was that, yes, you do believe in yourself, but you also, it's separate from you now. It's like a little baby, and you've got to go out. You don't say, "Oh, I had a kid," and you're the parent who puts the child and says they ate their first meal, they did their, there's a real pride, not pride, as you say, in an arrogant way, but pride in I did, make this. I put all my heart and soul in this, and I'm proud of it. And where does that come from in you?
I think it comes from knowing people who are really top of their field, whether it's reading their books or whether it's actually knowing these people. I mean, I know a number of singers in Australia who have hit great heights, and, no matter who they are, there was always a point in their life where they doubted who they were. And it wasn't until they really thought they could that they did. And it's that self-belief. I mean, if you can't believe in yourself, no one else is going to. If you can't believe in your product, well, I mean, how is anyone else going to believe in it? I do believe that you do. And, this comes from listening to a lot of readers, making a lot of edits, making a lot of smart choices. So I knew my product was the best it was going to be. And I knew I couldn't do any more. So, you have to get to a point where you're okay shouting it from the rooftops that you have worked so hard to do this story, to create this world, to make these characters. And these characters, I believe in them so much. The story that they tell, the themes of this book, really, this is important to the world. And I often think of that when I'm writing books. This is a bit of teacher jargon, but we talk about text to text, text to self, text to world. And I think about that. I want the children to be able to pick up my book and think, well, what other text is this one like? How is this text related to myself? And how is this text related to the world? And if they can find relevance and purpose and meaningful connections in those three areas, then the book means something. And I know this book does that. So, yeah, you've got to walk in confidently. You have to believe in yourself, in no matter what it is that you do. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. So enjoy your success. And you know what? If it flops, you will learn a huge amount about yourself from that too. I mean, there was no guarantee this was going to be successful, but you know what? I was not going to walk in thinking it was going to fail. So
but that's the thing, right? Like a lot of people go, "Oh, it'd be great if it sells 5 copies," and they throw it out there, kind of like, "I'm not going to look," but actually they're probably not helping them. Like, in other words, it popped in my ears when you said, like, I aimed for the top. I'm like, really? Yeah. But what happens if you get disappointed or fall off the building? Like, what in you aims for that top and doesn't care? That's what I want to tap.
Yeah, look, I think you've always got to aim for the top, and you do have to. It's that idea of self-belief. And you know what? If you only sell 5 books, fine. Those 5 books have gone to the 5 right people who needed to see it. That's your job done. You have the opportunity to tell a story. You've left a legacy in your book. I mean, for me, that was always enough. I wanted something that I can keep on my shelf for the rest of my life. And when I'm old and grey and blind, I want to be able to pick up that book and say, I wrote this. That was always, I wrote it for me. So if it doesn't find the success I wanted, it did for me. It did in my heart. It did everything I wanted it to, and that's why I write. I don't see writing as a permanent job for me. I don't see that. I love teaching, but this book was something I wanted to do for myself, and it's exciting that so many other people have connected with it too, and that's just a lucky bonus. But I wrote it for me, and there's my success.
Yeah, yeah. And, it probably helped what you just said, that you don't see it as your necessarily, I mean, it could be, but you don't necessarily see it as your permanent job, because I bet that actually made you aim higher, because it's sort of almost like doesn't matter so much. Maybe sometimes for some people it can matter almost too much.
Yeah, and I think that mattering too much is a sense of pressure that it's really hard for people to cope with. And look, I'm not great under pressure. I mean, I'll hit a deadline. That's not a problem. I'll always get there. But just knowing that, if there was a day or a week or a month I didn't want to write, I didn't have to write. I could just go, you know what? I could just put that down for a little while. And I think that's what it was. When I wrote when I was ready, when I felt creatively prepared. And that was what made the process exciting. I never felt like I had to force it. And thankfully, I hope that writing always stays like that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that is so good. Tell me a little bit about the themes in your book and why you chose them.
As I said, when I pick up a middle grade book, I read it to enjoy it. But I also read it as an educator. I always think, is there a place on my classroom library for this book? And when I am looking as an educator, I'm looking for, as I said, those 3 things: strong characters, motivating plot, and really unique themes throughout the book. It has to connect. And I think those are the 3 best ways to connect to readers. The themes in my book, and I guess maybe it comes from my childhood of not feeling like I accepted myself, or not feeling like I fitted into my environment. I was picked on and bullied. And I guess that I found that was a really tough world to grow up in. But I guess as a teacher, I see that all the time still happening. There's little snide remarks, and, there's this lack of self-acceptance in so many people now, because they wish they looked different. They wish they had more. They wish they could be better at something. In this book, I really wanted to hone in on the central theme being self-acceptance. And if we start off with, 13-year-old Mason, who's got this, he's in a world where having a curse is a criminal offense. So, most people can get by because if they've got the one curse and, it just lasts the same, you learn how to adapt to it. It's like everything, if you have lost a leg, or if there's something else that's happening with it, you learn to live with it, because it's just something that you do learn to live with. Mason has a curse, but unfortunately it's unpredictable and changes every 12 hours. At 7 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening, it changes. So he could be a stone statue in the morning, and then at night he could be flying around unable to land. So that meant that his life was so up and down, and he loathes his curse. It's just, why, if I have to be cursed, why can't I just have one that everyone else has? He craves a normal life. He craves going to school. He craves homework. But he can't do anything of that nature, because if he goes out with a curse that's going to expose him, he'll be imprisoned. And it's that idea of self-acceptance. And the theme continues to build and grow throughout the book, where we see I guess not really a spoiler because it's called The Prison for the Magically Cursed, but he is exposed. And he goes to a prison where he meets other cursed people who have come to terms with their curse. And, with all the ramifications and the challenges and the triumphs that go along with it. And he starts to realize that this is a special part of him that he has to learn to accept. He's not going to be able to change it. And instead of fighting it, let's work with it. I see this in my students all the time. I see so many kids who struggle with mathematics and wish that they were better. And I keep saying to them, you have the choice. You can fight this and just put the garage door down, shut yourself away and not want to, and always have that negative attitude about mathematics. Or you can take those baby steps, take a breath, and just do little bits. Find your success step by step. And so, I see this as a message that my students, children in general, need to be able to understand that idea of self-acceptance, and we're all different, and let others be themselves. And so I think that's one of the major themes in the book, and why I wrote that theme, because it's needed. We need to be more understanding and accepting of each other and our differences. And we need to just love ourselves. It's okay to be different.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I love that you do it through your character, discovering that, it's not, like you said, about maths or any of those things. It's not in your face. It's just watching their subtle transformation, well, sometimes not so subtle, through the book. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's creating characters that are flawed and relatable and goal-driven, just like the children are. They start to see themselves in those characters. They see themselves responding like those characters do. And you can't help but have that connection. And hopefully that theme resonates through that connection too.
Yeah, definitely. And is middle grade like your jam? Is that where you're living the rest of your life out? Or are you considering writing other things in future?
Oh, look, I am not sure. At the moment, I love middle grade. I guess I'm surrounded by it. My entire library at home, my library at school is full of middle grade. And I just love the stories and that whimsical escape that you can get in so many books. And look, I think middle grade is really blurred. I mean, it can be deep. There's a lot of deep moments in middle grade, a lot of grief, a lot of loss. And you just think, wow, middle grade is really starting to push the boundaries, because kids nowadays deal with so much more. You might pick up a book and think that it's middle grade, but actually the themes can be quite, young adult or even adult. And so I do love middle grade because it does push those boundaries and challenges anyone who's willing to pick it up.
Well, it's one of those things, isn't it, that what makes a book, that particular age group, and there's often debate and overlap and sort of, mixed opinions. I think my favourite definition that I've read is that in middle grade, the children sort of always return to home, whatever home is, right? So, not every child has a home, but there's kind of a return to something, whereas sometimes in young adult, they kind of go off, transform, find themselves, and actually do the exact opposite. They kind of leave home, which even we see in Harry Potter, right, where he comes back for the first few books, but then later he leaves the Dursleys and kind of leaves home. Now he's like squarely in young adult, and despite the themes all the way through being quite adult. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably what I kind of like the best definition of. What do you think?
Look, I agree to a certain extent. I mean, when you were saying, the characters come home, well, in book 2, it doesn't unfortunately work out that way. Book 2 has an ending that really surprised me and really made me think, oh, okay, this is different. So I think for me, middle grade also, it does focus on the main character. And their age and their personality, because we connect with the protagonist. I do think that there's a lot of, transition and growth in middle grade. And I think, honestly, it's often the way characters respond to certain situations that make it middle grade. I think it's the moments in the plot that, if there's a very heavy alcohol and drug kind of references throughout the book, well, you're leading away from middle grade. I think the content makes a massive difference. I always, when I think of middle grade, I always look at the protagonist and think, who are they speaking to? Who are they trying to communicate with? And in my book, he's clearly communicating with people that are around 10 to 15 years of age, that are around his age, because, he's going through school. He's going through the typical problems. He's having the difficulties in friendships. He's still trying to work out who he is. And all the situations around him are all combining to build up who this character is. And so that's where I go with middle grade. Yeah, but it is. It is one of those really tricky places. And I guess it's one of the reasons why so many adults have connected with my book too, because, there are some really challenging themes throughout it. I think the theme too has a massive part to do with, whether it's middle grade or other things, lucky in love and, love triangles and things like that. And the themes around trust and, that can go into YA. So there are a lot of elements that make middle grade. And I guess that's the blurred lines that we were talking about before. But yeah.
It can be really blurred, isn't it? It's like the School for Good and Evil. Like to me, when I read that felt YA, it was like, no, this is middle grade. I'm like, is it?
Yeah.
And then we have debates about it, and often it's because like kids aren't squarely in a group either.
No.
Like they sort of blur the lines, especially in this day and age with so much social media and things. They're growing up faster and faster and faster. So it's just do your thing, write what you're confident about, and
Absolutely.
trust. Yeah.
And as you start to put it out to people to read it, you start to see what connects with people and what they engage with. And it does clarify where it kind of fits. And I think we just have to always remember that a book is going to fit in multiple different places with multiple different people. So, be ready for that. I know you have to put like an age group around it, which I find really challenging, but your book will go to the people it needs to. And that's what I've always had in my heart when I'm writing.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of, like it being your first book, like how did you know how to plot it? Did you follow a particular system? Did you stumble through? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Where do you sit?
I am very firmly a plotter, and I use the Save the Cat beat sheet. I literally I read the book. I researched everything I could about it. I found there's great free templates online. I printed those out and I outlined in that template. And I really made sure I followed every, every section, the amount that they suggested. I really tried to keep it to the exact percentage. And I found that, as I was plotting, I'd get to the end of, where the inciting incident is. And I'm thinking, I haven't got there yet. Okay, go back, cut. This is not necessary. And I would find, okay, now it feels fast paced and fresh. And yeah, so I am a plotter. I think the outline for my first book was 30 pages, and I wrote down as much as I could about it. And I'm so grateful that I did, because I really just sat down and I never really got writer's block. I would immediately go back to that and go, right, that's where I'm up to, bang, 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 bang. And I'd always leave writing on a high note. So I always wanted to come back to it. It was those sort of little techniques. But I don't know how pantsers do it. I cannot grasp it. Yes, there are times where, the characters want to do something different and they'll waver, but I always have an A and I always have a Z, and it's got to get there. So
yeah, it's that linear fashion. Yeah, the Save the Cat is like, in my opinion, I've read like so many different how to plot books and still didn't quite grasp until Save the Cat, and in particular, Save the Cat writes a novel by
yes, that's
Jessica
one I've
Brady,
read.
who is episode 1 of this podcast. Go back and listen to her. She's amazing, and she's so generous with her knowledge, and she simplifies things and makes it so easy to understand plotting, whereas it can be so overwhelming and impossible to understand. She just has a way she makes you think, I can actually do that. I mean, you asked, how do people pants, not know where they're going? Yeah, I wrote The Splendid Secrets of 66 Lily Pilly Lane that way. I actually had walked past a house and said, that house ought to be on the front cover of a book. And got the front cover done, put the characters on, went, oh, yep, there's going to be a girl, a duck, yep, it's going to be a gold statue, a tree, don't know anything. And then I just sat down and wrote. And then it started off, and she's in like mines. And I'm like, really? Is that where this story was? Really? And it just went, ooh. Yeah, I don't know that I could ever do it again. In fact, I think that's probably why I'm struggling writing book 2 of anything, because book 2 of anything. Did you catch that? Because I'm not trusting that process anymore. I'm like, I need to plot. I need to plot.
Yeah.
And I'm the sort of person where if I do plot, I sit down and it goes, yeah, it ain't coming out like the way you thought it was, and it comes out like that again. So yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Just different approaches and how you have to follow. I probably think for myself, I don't know about anybody else, that if I really work best when I pants and plot. So a little bit of plot to make sure I'm hitting beats, like you said, but giving myself the freedom to just pour what's coming out. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
I think that's very important, though, too. You've got to allow the characters to have their say in where this is going, because I often found that there'd be a situation come up and then I'd write the reaction and I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's not how I thought they were going to react. That is a strange thing. But again, I guess when it comes to plotting, and I learnt this from my brilliant editor, that, you know, the journey of goals, motivations, and stakes is integral to the character moving through the plot, and being able to clearly define what those are. I found that plotting worked for me because I just knew, okay, well, this is what their goal is. This is why they want it. And this is what will happen if they don't get it. So I have to keep down that line. And yes, there were, like, if I say that I outlined, but, you know, it was probably about 90% of my outline I actually followed. 10% was free range. But in the end, A to Z got there, and I feel like the goals and motivations and stakes remained the same from when I started. So I was happy with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you know, like, I encourage listeners to not necessarily go, nah, that's the way I do it, but to, you know, explore and try different ways. Like I had this revelation the other day. I think I've told you this before. I sat down, I went, do you know what? Because I pants, I realize this is so bad, every single one of my books, I'm talking all of them, I think there's 26 or something, happen in a few days.
Oh, wow.
Like all of them. So I think, I'm talking out loud now, you know, one writer to another, that it's that I think that's because I'm pantsing, and I can only pants in a short period of time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. Done. Like, it all happens in a few days. And I had this moment where I'm like, okay, I have to actually sit down and make a decision, possibly, I don't know, whether is this kind of a thing about my books that is in all of my books always, like almost like the show 24, right?
Yeah.
That they're always going to have, or is this actually a limitation given to me by my pantsing, and I need to break out of it? I haven't decided yet. I'd love your opinion.
That's really interesting because, like,
isn't it?
A part of it, the joy of middle grade, and look, the joy of any book is that it's got a rollicking pace. And, you know, when things happen in a couple of days, that's a big level of growth, a massive journey that happens in a couple of days. And, you know, as a reader, you are so engaged in it that it's like, whoa, okay, we're going. You know, I think whatever works for you and your characters and your readers, I think works. Whether it's a limitation or not, if you've still found that it's still creating great literature that you're invested in and your readers are enjoying, I can't even see the problem. I think it's great.
I don't know. That's what I mean. I'm like, because I only worked this out by accident. That's what I mean. It's a funny one, isn't it? Like, that's
and you don't
sometimes you need to,
you don't want to get into that habit of thinking, well, I have to fill it out more. Let's just put in a few scenes that really mean nothing, and it can be over a week. I think it's about capturing every scene and understanding why a scene is important and getting rid of any excess that you don't need, wading through it. And if it comes in a few days and it's all the scenes are right and there's a clear journey and there's a development, I think it's gold.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so weird. But yeah, these are the things sometimes, just to stop and reflect and then be like, whoa, okay, I did not realize I did that.
Yeah.
And how do I want to do it differently in future? Or maybe I want to do it the same. But yeah, fascinating, isn't it? So,
it is.
So weird. So weird. So why did you choose to okay, I'm going to say it like this. I've got to have an offensive moment, or it could be a golden moment. Depends which way it
I
goes.
love it.
What I want to say is, like, your book reads like a trad published book. Right, and what does that mean? No, that's what I mean. I'm offending everybody who's written a self-published book. I've written self-published books, and it's not just because like you've done all the editing and all the good things. We do that too, but I think it might be. I'm pulling stuff out of my head now. It might be because you took the time, you had that amazing feedback from students, and you've really brought it together, and it does. It reads like something that's been edited by a trad publisher because they've got a lot of experience and all of that. So my question is, after I've insulted everybody in the world, sorry everybody, it's a thing, is why did you choose to self-publish and not trad publish? Was that conscious?
A little bit of both. I mean, I did investigate traditional publishing, and I did look into it, and I put feelers out and was getting a few nibbles here and there. And I remember the first nibble that I got, it was one of those R&Rs, read and review. And look, this was not in its final stage, so I knew it did have a place to go. And there were alarm bells. And look, it's probably really silly, but I love these characters. These characters actually stem from a lot of experiences in my life. Mason has this unpredictable curse, struggles to live a normal life, because I based that on a student who suffered leukemia. And he could never have a normal life when he was having operations. I mean, in kindergarten, he was hardly ever in kindergarten, came halfway through year 1. And I remember teaching him in I was lucky enough to have him twice, in year 3 and year 6. And in year 6, he brought in this bag of beads. I tell you, the beads stretched across our oval. And all these beads were there. I said, what is this? And his mother was there crying, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, what's happened? He said, all the white beads are, blood transfusions. All the green beads are when I've had nights in hospital. And that was when I knew this is my character. I'm writing this character for this boy, because it's everything he was telling me is exactly sort of what Mason goes through. So I didn't want to change my characters. I didn't want to change the story. I really believed in this. And when I sent it, so after I got that R&R, I thought, I'm not going to do anymore. I'm going to keep editing. I'm going to send it off to a copy and line editor to have a look at it. And she said exactly the same thing to me when we ended up having a Zoom meeting afterward. And right at the end, she said, so when you send this off in query, and I'm like, oh, I'm not querying. Her jaw dropped. She said, no, you cannot do this. You cannot. You have to traditionally publish. And I said, I don't want to. I want to control the rights to this story. This is a story for me. It was never for the money. It was never for that. This is a story that will get out in its own time, but I don't want to feel like I have to change things that mean so much to me. And it really does. It means a lot to me. And, I am proud of the work that's been put into it. And I'm proud that I stuck to my guns, and the characters are who I want them to be. The situations are what I wanted them to be. And I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, it's glorious, and it's a really important question to ask yourself, because it isn't just that one way. You've probably ended up, even though the money's not important to you, making probably maybe even better than you would have if you had trad published it, right? And it might be a bit of a slower burn, but you're, like you said, I wanted to control my rights.
Yeah.
And that's the rights of the characters and all the way the story, but also now you have that control as you sell and market that. And I bet that's quite fulfilling too.
It is. And as I said to you, I write when I want to write, how I want to write. I don't want to be living by deadlines. I don't want to have publishing companies saying, well, where's this and where's that? And I need these by this date. I've got a life. I've got a career. I've got a job that I love. I don't want to have this heaving breath on the back of my neck telling me, well, you have to get this many chapters done by tomorrow. I just never want writing to be like that for me. It is a passion. It is a joy. And that's the way I want to keep it. And I'm very happy with the results that come with a self-published book. Absolutely. Very proud. And look, I mean, it's already hit its success marks. I mean, I can tell you a number of traditionally published books that have not received anywhere near the accolades that this one has. It doesn't need to be traditionally published. Self-published authors have their stories deserve to be told. They're just as good. I hate hearing, "Oh, you're self-published." Like it's the second option. No, I self-published and I'm proud of it. I did this, I did all the work, and I'm getting the accolades. It's still, that is still a massive thing that's out there in the world. And, they say, "Oh, you're self-published," with a little sigh in their voice. And I stand up proudly, shoulders back, and I say, "Yep, I did it all myself." Very proud.
You did. Do you know, even the other day I got an email through from Amazon and it said the KDP, page reads for March was 48.1 million or something. And I read this out loud and my husband goes, "How much of that are we getting?" Not enough, I don't think. And I'm like, "Oh, you're all about the money. We're all about the creative." But, that's astounding, right? That's just page reads that Amazon pays out. So when people kind of go, "Oh, you're self-published," sigh, it's like, dude, do you realize this is like an actual giant industry? This is not like some little – now, not obviously everybody makes money, but you absolutely can.
Yeah. And I think if you walk in with that idea, I fear you'll be more disappointed than you will be rewarded. I think you have to – when you write a book, you celebrate that you did it. Because how many people have an idea in their head that I wish I'd write a book? They never will. You did it. Celebrate your success. Own your success. Be proud of what you've created and put it out there proudly and, with confidence. And it will find its mark. If it's with 5 people, then it's with 5 people. If it's with 5,000 people, then it's with 5,000. But it doesn't diminish your work. It doesn't diminish your passion. Ride that wave rather than thinking about the what ifs. I've never, ever thought about what if I did traditionally publish and I really pushed it. I've never once thought that. Never.
Wow. So even there you back yourself.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to have to be maybe the title of your "Back Yourself." With
you have to back yourself. If you've done the work and you've done the homework and you seek out help from others and you've got your right social media and you're getting the right launch and you've got your characters, your plot and your theme, what else can you do? You got to back yourself. You do all this work and not back yourself. It's criminal. Don't do that. Everything we've talked about in this podcast really is setting you up to back yourself. And that's what you have to do.
Too good, Brett. Okay, I'm going to ask my last-ish question. Not book last-ish, because you never know.
No, I know with you. You never know.
You never know. Like you're to me, you said in there, about protecting your passion. That's what I heard, protecting your passion. And again, I see people burn out. And I see people kind of like thinking they want to make it their career, and then when they do, they burn out. That has not happened to me yet, knock on wood. I am a Greek superstitious person, and I have my evil eyes all around me, okay? So no, you get evil-eyed if you give too many compliments, so stop complimenting me, people. Enough. And so the point I was trying to make is, protecting that passion so you don't burn out. And I know you're a multifaceted creative, like writing is one part of you. Teaching, I feel, is very creative for you. And, you paint, you're a stage actor. Tell me a bit about all your other creative things and how important they are to you as a creative person.
I think people are put on this earth to do certain things, and I think mine is to be creative. I do. I think everything I do is telling stories, whether it's on the stage, whether you're, acting a part. I love musical theatre, so I love the story that comes behind every song. There's a story there. You've got to show the journey. I love that. Even in teaching, it is a performance, and you are trying to engage and do all these techniques that we do in books to keep them focused and interested. I think every aspect of my life has got something to do with being creative and being a storyteller, and it all just melts together. And when you can find that harmonious balance, it's so, it feels so right. And I make sure that I always enjoy it. And if I'm not enjoying it, I take a step away and give myself time. It's okay to step away from your passion for a short while you just refocus yourself, while you rebalance yourself. Because then when you go back in, you'll go in wholeheartedly and in full charge. And I've always been like that. So I'm lucky. My creativity builds and it is constantly building. It's a muscle. And I love exercising that muscle.
Oh, it's a muscle. It's a muscle. Oh, Brett, we could so hang out if we went over the border from each other. You're in the good state now. We used to be the most livable city in the world, but now, no, alas, no longer. COVID took it away.
I love it.
I did hear the other day that we won the most friendliest people in the world, and I was like, dudes, you're really kind of like reaching, like.
Did they meet you or? Now I get my moment to offend. Did they meet you or no? Oh gosh, it's got one offence to another. Look, you can tell we're friends.
The friendliest people in the world. Come to Melbourne, everybody.
Right.
Yeah, no, they did not meet me. Hence why they said that statement. Because us writers are hidden away in our little basements,
in little cages.
Yes, in our little cages.
Yeah. Oh,
I love it. You have elevated in status for me. That's it. See, that's all I want. I want to, I recently did this, put it out on social media. I'm going to end with this, on social media about this color test that you can do. And, obviously with my psychology background, I love tests, that tell you more about yourself. And it was a color test and to find out what color you are, right? Which tells you about your personality. But one of the things that really stood out about it is, and where I'm at now with all this stuff, is you've got to learn how to treat others as they want to be treated. So, there was a statement like, treat somebody as you'd like to be treated.
Yep.
That doesn't really work anymore, right? Because I think we have to now actually treat others how they would like to be treated, which may not be how I'd like to be treated. So, this is, I really need to get a lot better at this. I'm not doing this at all. But, that as the next step in how we engage with each other. And, one of the things I put up, was like my color profile. And it was like, you've got to be able to take playful teasing because that's what my color does. You have to give me praise. So I need it,
right.
And it sounds funny, right? To actually say to someone, I need praise, or, like I tease people. But if you don't teach others how to treat you, how are they supposed to know?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I thought I'd finish off on that, even though
I think that sounds like the theme of your next book. There's your theme. Ooh. There you go. You got to. It's about treating others how they want to be treated. There's your theme. It's taking a moment in the world and thinking there's something here that people need to learn, and a book can teach it. So there you go.
Yeah, beautiful. Maybe it is. Yes. Will it take part in 3 days, or will it happen over?
Yeah, well, that's my next question. We will stay tuned, people. We'll find out soon.
Well, I've had so much fun chatting with you, and all the links to Brett will be in the show notes. And go and pre-order his next book so that it skyrockets Amazon off the charts, everybody. And get the first one too. There it is for those who are watching the video with the gorgeous cover done by I know this illustrator. It is
Ricky Gunnawan.
Ricky someone?
Ricky Gunnawan. Yep.
Yeah, amazing
it's
artist. So good, and good luck with the launch. I can't wait to see what you write next, and thank you for being my author friend online.
Yay, and thank you for helping. And I guess the last thing to people is just reach out and ask. You make so many great friends. Everyone's here to help. Flick us an email, we'll help, we'll answer any questions. So just be ready to change the world and believe in yourself. Back yourself.
Did you find that interview valuable? Great! Now be an awesome human and go and leave a review because it helps the podcast out so much. Want to read the show notes? Check out the children'sbookauthorpodcast.com. Want to find out more about me, Eleanor Page? Find me at eleanorpage.com or come and say hello on social at Eleanor Page Books. Until next time, keep writing and keep learning.